Okay, let's talk Bitcoin fees.
Yeah.
Because, you'd think sending more money means higher fees, right?
That's the common assumption, yeah, like your bank.
Exactly. But with Bitcoin, forget that. Sending $1 million might cost you, like, almost nothing.
Well, buying a coffee could, yeah, potentially cost you way more than the coffee itself if the network's busy. It's different.
It's completely different. And that's what we're digging into today. Why are Bitcoin fees structured this way? It seems kind of backwards.
It does feel counterintuitive at first, but there's a logic to it, tied deep into how Bitcoin actually works.
Right. So our mission here is to unpack that logic, understand the why, the consequences, and crucially, what this means for Bitcoin's future. Especially, as miner rewards change.
Because that reward structure is changing. We need to look at how miners are incentivized now and how that's shifting.
Okay, let's do that. So right now, miners get paid mainly through two things.
That's right. They get the block subsidy, brand new Bitcoin created with each block.
And they also collect the transaction fees people pay.
Exactly. And currently, that block subsidy is, well, it's the main meal ticket for them.
What's the current subsidy? Around 3.125 Bitcoin per block as of early 2025.
Correct. 3.125 BTC. Still a significant amount.
For sure. But the fees, they're a smaller part of the picture for now, like 5-20% maybe?
Generally, yes. Sometimes even lower, maybe 5-10% during quiet periods. Some sources we looked at say over 90% of revenue can still come just from that block reward.
But here's the kicker, that block reward isn't forever, is it?
Not at all. It halves automatically about every 4 years. The last halving was April 2024.
Right. So that 3.125 BTC will become roughly 1.56 BTC around 2028 and so on. It keeps shrinking.
Precisely. Which means long term, those transaction fees have to take over. They need to become the main reason miners mining keeps securing the network.
So this is where it gets critical. If those fees aren't high enough or if they're too unpredictable, what happens?
That's the big concern. It touches on network security. If mining isn't profitable enough because the subsidy is down and fees are low or volatile,
then miners might drop off. Less computing power securing the network.
Potentially, yes. A lower hash rate, as it's called. And a lower hash rate, theoretically, makes the network more vulnerable to certain kinds of attacks.
Okay, so fees are becoming really important for security. But let's get back to that weird part. Why aren't they based on the amount sent?
Because Bitcoin transactions aren't really about the value being moved from the network's perspective. They're about data.
Data. Explain that.
Every transaction takes up space in a block, like digital paperwork. The fee you pay is essentially you buying a little bit of that limited block space.
So the fee is based on the transaction size in bytes.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Specifically virtual bytes or bytes. And it also depends on how much you're willing to pay per byte. That's your fee rate, usually measured in satoshis per byte.
Satoshis, the smallest unit of Bitcoin. So it's like an auction. You bid satoshis per unit of data space.
Exactly. You're bidding against everyone else who wants their transaction included in the next block. Higher bid per byte, higher chance of getting in quickly.
Which leads to those crazy examples. A huge transfer, maybe simple data-wise, costs pennies.
Right. While a small payment, if it's complex or the network is jammed, could cost dollars because it needs more space or a higher bid per byte.
There's basically no real link between the dollar value and the fee.
None that's guaranteed. It fluctuates purely based on demand for block space and user urgency.
Which, again, is just so different from traditional finance. You expect to pay, like, a percentage, right?
Yeah, traditional system is banks, credit cards. They often charge maybe 0.1% to 1% of the value, sometimes plus other fixed costs. It kind of scales with the amount.
And that covers their risks, fraud protection, all that stuff.
Right. But Bitcoin's design is different. Every transaction competes for that same limited block space based on its technical details, script complexity, how many inputs it uses.
Inputs, like the different bits of Bitcoin you're spending, UTXOs.
Exactly. Unspent transaction outputs. More inputs often mean more data, higher fee. So yeah, it penalizes complexity and size, not value.
Leading to this mismatch. Cheap, huge settlements, potentially expensive small payments.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's talk implications. Who are the winners and losers in this setup?
Well, clearly, large transactions benefit, big institutions, whales moving millions. The fee is often negligible compared to the value. It makes Bitcoin attractive for settling large amounts on-chain.
But the little guy trying to buy coffee.
They can really suffer, especially during peak times. We saw reports, didn't we, of $30, $40 fees in early 2024.
Yeah, absolutely makes small retail payments uneconomical on the main chain.
That's the paradox. Cheap for massive value transfer, potentially brutal for microtransactions. It challenges that whole peer-to-peer electronic cash idea for everyday use.
It almost sounds regressive, like it hits smaller transactions harder.
Some argue that, yeah, that the fee structure disproportionately affects those making smaller, more frequent payments.
Okay, so the system has this challenge built in. What's being done? How is the Bitcoin world trying to square this circle?
There's a lot of innovation happening. The most prominent area is probably layer 2 solutions.
Layer 2, like the Lightning Network.
Exactly. Lightning is the big one for payments.
How does Lightning help with the small, expensive transactions?
So Lightning lets you open payment channels off the main Bitcoin blockchain. You lock some Bitcoin on-chain to open the channel.
Okay, like setting up a tab.
Kind of, yeah. Then, within that channel, you can send potentially thousands of tiny near-instant transactions back and forth with someone else.
And the fees for those off-chain transactions.
Very, very low, often fractions of a cent. You only pay a main blockchain fee when you open the channel and when you close it to settle the final balance.
So it moves all the small stuff off the main congested chain.
Right. It's incredibly promising for micropayments, but it does add complexity for users. There are trade-offs with liquidity, channel management.
It's not quite seamless yet for everyone. Needs better user experience.
It's improving rapidly, but yes, user education and adoption are key. Still, we're seeing growth, lots of nodes, significant capacity locked in channels now in 2025.
What about making the main chain itself more efficient? Any improvements happening there?
Definitely. One big technique is transaction batching.
Batching.
Yeah, think of large players like crypto exchanges. Instead of sending out hundreds of individual withdrawal transactions, they can bundle them all into one big transaction on the blockchain.
Ah, so they pay one larger fee, but it covers many payments.
Exactly. They spread the cost, making the per payment fee much lower for their users.
Smart. Are there tech upgrades to Bitcoin itself that help?
Yes. Protocol upgrades like Taproot, which activated a few years back, are crucial. Taproot makes certain complex transactions smaller in terms of data size.
So things like multi-signature wallets or even opening Lightning channels become cheaper.
Precisely. Less data means a lower fee for the same security. And there's ongoing research into things like covenants, which could enable even smarter, more efficient transactions down the line.
So layer 2, like Lightning, batching, protocol upgrades.
Yeah.
Any other approaches?
Well, there are other layer solutions too. Things like sidechains liquid is one example, and rollups. These are different architectures for moving activity off the main chain and settling later.
Lots of different angles being explored then.
Absolutely. It's not just about tech either. User behavior is adapting too.
Oh, so.
Modern wallets are getting much better at estimating fees. They look at the network congestion and suggest a fee rate that balances cost and confirmation time.
So you don't have to guess as much or massively overpay.
Hopefully not, yeah. And if your transaction isn't urgent, you can just choose to pay a lower fee and wait for a quieter time on the network.
Patience pays off.
Sometimes, yes. Also, smart users might consolidate their UTXOs, those little bits of Bitcoin, during low-fee periods. Combining them into one UTXO means future transactions might be smaller and cheaper.
Ah, preparing for future spending by tidying up your wallet when fees are low.
Exactly. And miners themselves might lower their minimum accepted fees when blocks aren't full just due to competition.
Okay, so stepping back. This unique fee system based on data, not value. Where does it leave Bitcoin long term? Is it fundamentally going to hinder it being everyday money?
That's really the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? The fee market was designed primarily for security, for auctioning block space, not necessarily for cheap, value-proportional payments.
So for Bitcoin to really work for small, everyday stuff, these other layers, like Lightning, need to become mainstream.
I think that's the consensus, yes. Making layer 2 super easy to use, ensuring there's enough liquidity, that's vital.
And continuing to make the base layer more efficient, too.
Absolutely. Continued protocol upgrades to shrink transaction sizes, maybe find clever ways to discount certain fees, it all helps. Plus, user and business education is huge, knowing when to use on-chain versus off-chain.
It forces a choice, then. Will Bitcoin be primarily this digital gold, a store of value, and a settlement layer for huge transactions?
Or can it also fulfill that original Satoshi vision of peer-to-peer electronic cash for everyone, for everything?
It's a fundamental fork in the road, potentially.
It is. And honestly, we don't know the final answer. It's an ongoing experiment. Can Layer 2 and other innovations deliver that seamless, low-fee experience people expect from money?
Or will the base layer fee market, especially as the subsidy disappears, remain a barrier for mass adoption for payments?
That's what the next few years will likely reveal. It's a fascinating space to watch.
Definitely. So, wrapping up our deep dive for today, the big takeaway is that Bitcoin fees are weird, but for a reason. Data size, not dollar value.
Right. It creates this system with unique benefits for large transfers, but real challenges for small ones.
Hopefully everyone listening feels they've got a better handle on why that is and what's being done about it.
Yeah, understanding the incentives, the constraints, the solutions being built, it's key to understanding Bitcoin's potential path.
Absolutely. And it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? What will be Bitcoin's dominant role? Will technology solve the fee issue for everyday use, or will it settle into a different niche? Something to ponder.
And maybe something for a future deep dive, perhaps focusing purely on latening and the quest for true micropayments.
Sounds like a plan. For now, thanks for exploring the strange world of Bitcoin transaction fees with us.